That we are live now. We're talking Wilson buying sketch covers, a blank, I should say. I never know what to call them because it's like they call sketch covers the like alternate cover that's not inked.
Right.
They call sketch covers sometimes the blank covers.
Right.
And they call sketch covers the blank covers that have been sketched on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always like, I'm always hesitant to use that phrase sketch covers because I never know which one I mean, let alone someone else.
Exactly. So the ones that I'm talking about are the blank covers
Right.
to sketch on.
Right.
Because as a sketch card artist, the comic companies are so kind enough to make us canvases to draw on.
Yeah.
For the same price as a comic book. But Midtown was having a sale. So I put a whole bunch of them onto my cart.
Hello there, Tit Goblin.
Hello, Happy New Year, Tit Goblin. So I put everything into my cart.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, okay, I could check out and have it, mailed to the store. So I save on shipping and just pick it up when I get my books. And it was like, it was a very easy button that basically said, would you like to put this onto your cart, onto your pickup for the pull list, right? So I had to double check to make sure I wasn't adding these titles to the pull.
Right, just that individual,
just those individual sales. And so I had to do it for each individual book. It's like, is this doing it correctly? I believe so. But I thought at the end I would get a whole tally. But I didn't. It automatically got put. So yes, at the end of the week, I was charged.
If you were to go to your pull list, would you see them there, I wonder?
That's a good question. I did not look.
You might have to go there. And good evening, Comic Crack. Evening, fellas. Happy New Year to you, too.
Happy New Year. I know once it automatically checked out and I got billed for it,
mm-hmm.
it arrived on my list. So so it told me what I bought at the end. And it was like, all right, so those are on their way. So they'll be waiting for me at the comic book shop.
Because those aren't, those have to be, are they like Midtown Comics has a warehouse store, right?
Yes. So Midtown has 3 shops in the city itself, mm-hmm. 2 of them in Midtown, one of them by Wall Street, I think, or the Fulton Market area. And then there's one in, I think, Brooklyn or Queens, I forget. So that's what they call the warehouse. So it's actually a converted house. So like you walk in to the midpoint of the house, and then the basement is where they have the back issues. Okay. So the midpoint of the house is kind of like the comic shop. It's laid out like a comic book shop, but there are more toys and statues in that than you would normally have. I do not know or think they get weekly books. And then downstairs are the Big Bens. I don't know if there's an upstairs house part that maybe someone lives there or maybe is more storage, but I've only been on the main floor in the basement. And so that's their warehouse. I think everything goes through the warehouse.
So like they'd order, like whatever distributor they're ordering from distributes to that one shop / warehouse, and then they give it to the other stores, you think?
I think so. I think the stores might get their weekly books directly.
Okay.
And then the pull list and stuff like that is handled through the warehouse and then sent, although it does make more sense to have everything go to that one location. Right. And then distribute out. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, that makes more sense because I do remember one week they didn't have the books because something happened to the truck that was taking the books from the warehouse to the individual stores. So I think it has, they have it all goes to that one location and then it gets distributed out.
So when you're ordering those blank covers, they probably have them already.
It's possible.
It's possible that they have them already,
or
they can back order them.
Right. So, or they have them all sitting in the warehouse.
Yeah.
So I would imagine there's probably a listing of stuff that's in each store. And then just like any type of other corporations, they might be interoffice mail type of things set up.
So you weren't pre-ordering those. They're going to be there next time. That means they already have them.
They're already there. Yeah. These were stuff that were sitting in inventory,
right?
And they were on sale because I guess no one was buying them. So, it's like, all right, if they're on sale,
they're these sketch covers that nobody wants anything sketched on.
Right.
I've bought a few of those myself.
So I do have a few, but it was like I'm running out.
And how many did you end up buying?
I think 6 altogether.
Okay.
6 various titles. So I didn't get like 1 3 times or anything like that. I was like, let me get these 6 titles. I have an idea for some artwork on each of them, and that's the concept.
Do you sell those at cons?
Yeah, sometimes I do.
Okay.
Sometimes I sell them at con, or sometimes I'll sell them on my eBay store. Okay. And I realize, I don't have any on the eBay store. I don't have any artwork up except for some sketch cards. They've been sitting there for a while, so it's like, all right, let me get some covers because I could really go all out because it's a bigger thing. Right. I have some ideas, and then it's like I can make something bigger, do them in color, and ask for crazy prices because sometimes crazy comes a knocking. Why not?
Why not? I put a lot of work into these. Now, do you do the character that's on the inside? Do you sketch, like if it's a Spider-Man cover, a Spider-Man comic, you draw Spider-Man on the front, or do you sometimes buy like, I don't know, some random character who nobody wants, but draw Spider-Man on the front?
I usually try to match it to the book.
Yeah.
I don't believe I had just drawn something that has no relationship to the book.
Okay.
Because most of these, especially I think the Marvel ones, especially, there's the logos on the cover.
Right.
Sometimes it's not fully blank. Sometimes there's something there. So I figured, all right, if the Spider-Man logo's on there, chances are I'm trying to get that Spider-Man fan.
Right.
To buy it. If I was to say I was in the mood to draw Spider-Man and I only have a Hulk cover, then I'll have Spider-Man and a Hulk on it doing something. I think my mind is stuck on it should match the book.
Okay.
Kind of a thing. So far, I haven't tried it any other way as of yet.
Have you ever made your own sketch covers?
No, I have not. I've seen the process. It's basically Bristol board folded up, but I'm also quite lazy. And so I have not attempted yet.
What I did once that came out pretty cool was I found a few like 1970s EC Comics reprints at my LCS for just a couple of bucks. And what I did was I took a panel that I liked from inside the comic and said, let me make this the cover. So then I drew a sketch cover of that panel. I just kind of did that for fun.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I thought that worked out pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have, because of doing the sketch cards and stuff like that, had come up with some ideas of fun things like that to see if I could get the materials for it. Such as, back in the 80s, they made a set of mini comic books. And Marvel, DC, Archie was licensed by this company that made these. They were calling them, I think, record comics. And what they were was mini comic books that came with bubble gum.
Okay.
So the bubble gum kind of looked like a record, if I remember correctly. And that was like the thing to get. And by the way, you get a comic book with it.
Yeah.
The way this thing was packaged, there was a blank page at the very end. which is like that's the same exact size of a sketch card. And so at the time that I bought a few, I found some blank ones. I mean, I found a bunch of the cards without the bubble gum, of course.
Right.
They were selling these little, so it was a mini comic. Each page was like a splash page, basically. Very generic story. I think it might have been John Romita Sr., or at least did the cover.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember the rest of the books off the top of my head right now, so I'll look for it to have it for next week so I can show you. So it's like, all right, so it was a generic story of Spider-Man versus Doc Ock, but there's always at the end this piece of paper that's attached to it. And it was like, all right, this would be good, I hope, to draw on and do basically a piece of original artwork with this mini comic book and basically resell this whole thing as a nice little package of a vintage thing with some new artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was Spider-Man, Captain America, and I think Hulk was the Marvel books. And then there was a Archie, Betty and Veronica, and Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, was the other set of books. But they were all mixed together because it was one company that licensed a bunch of products for it. And it was like, so I have taken that to like make stuff, but I haven't made anything yet with it. It was more of like, oh, this is an interesting thing of, you know, they're pretty inexpensive. Maybe I can make some artwork with it and then resell that whole thing as a package.
Oh, okay. Let's Tit Goblin says, does the paper quality vary on sketch covers? Is the paper acid free? I have no idea if it's acid free, but I doubt it.
I don't know if it's acid free. Each company does whatever they do with the paper. Some are god awful to draw on.
Yeah.
Sometimes companies will pick the cheapest paper they can get and try to get away with, oh, you could draw on this. I really can't. They're pretty bad. It's kind of like, for a while, as you mentioned before, there were sketch covers that they were selling, which are just printed to look like they were sketched on the cover, but it's not really finished art. And then you had the black and white covers. And I like the black and white covers because as a colorist, I could color on the black and white cover and create a sketch cover for a colorist. And I thought that was neat, and I made some money doing that for a while. So instead of doing the whole cover, you could do individual characters. You could knock out some stuff here and there, so it doesn't even have to match the original color. And the Marvel ones are really good to do that, but not the DC, because the DC ones will have like a coating on it. And you would go with the marker, and all it would do would bubble up, or it would pull. And it was like, oh, these are not good for that.
Too glossy.
The only way around it was that you could take a kneaded eraser and go over it, and it took off a bit of whatever slick thing they put on it, enough that you could kind of get away with coloring on it. It was almost like coloring on those photostat papers back in the day, where it's like you're not getting a good grab of the color onto the paper.
Yeah, the surface is too slick, so it doesn't sink in. It pools on the top.
Yes. Exactly. So it really depends on the company. Sometimes it would be a good batch, sometimes not. So it is weird how some things can work well.
But it's not watercolor paper, so I doubt any of it is acid free.
Probably not.
Doesn't mean it's not going to last our lifetimes, but you know, won't last 3 or 4 lifetimes.
Right. Last just long enough. It was like when Steve Rude was painting on those, I think, blocks of wood, where it's like one day that's just going to all come right off.
Yep. I have lots of comics to show because if you remember last week, I didn't get to the store until Saturday, so I had no comics to show. So I got 2 weeks worth of comics here.
Excellent. I did have a comic from that I bought off of TikTok.
Oh, a TikTok comic.
Yep. So I could talk about that when we do the comic books.
Oh, okay. And I also got, for some reason, I was sitting around last weekend And do you know from George Perez's Teen Titans, Trigon the Terrible?
Yes.
He's Starfire's father, I think.
No, Ravens.
Raven's father. That's right.
Raven's father.
Hey, it's Liz. Wait, so it's actually Friday? Most confusing week ever. Hello there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen a few social media posts where people are like, this is the time of the year everybody's woozy from eating and nobody has any idea what day of the week it is. And there's some truth to that for sure.
Wednesday felt like a Saturday, that's for sure.
Well, for some reason I was sitting around thinking, you know what? I always liked Trigon the Terrible. I thought he looked pretty cool. I wonder if there's an action figure of him. So I started looking around to see if there was an action figure of him, and I think there were only two.
Okay.
There was one that's a DC Legends Build-A-Piece action figure.
Mm-hmm.
That one was okay and expensive. And then there was one other. I forget where it came from, but it wasn't very good. It ended up I ended up getting a pop of Trigon the Terrible.
Neat.
This was the best looking of them. With the giant horn. And at first I was thinking I was going to paint it. But I'm like, you know what? I just might leave this. I got plenty of boring pops I can paint still. And it was only, and this was I think this was the most expensive pop I've gotten because it was $11. It was like $5 for the pop and $5 shipping.
Nice.
Usually for the ones I paint, I pay like $2 or $3 for them on Amazon. Super cheap. I was just like, you know what? He looks. The action figures really weren't very good. I thought the pop looked better than the action figures. The action figures to me didn't look as cool as at least I remember the George Perez drawings looking. I wasn't actually looking at the George Perez drawings.
Right.
So I ended up and it turns out this is also a limited edition Funko 2023 summer collection.
Ooh.
Whatever that means. Yeah. I guess they put them on the Justice League for some reason. Or at least they put them with the Justice League pop. So that's one thing I got this week. I was like, cool, Trigon the Terrible. I'll put him next to my what's his name? His name just flew right out of my head. From Friends, the guy who works at the coffee shop. Gunther. I'll put him next to Gunther. So I'll have Gunther and Trigon will be my two pops that I keep on my drawing table.
Gunther serving him coffee?
Yep, Gunther will be serving him coffee. Have you got a Trigon figure? Nah, probably not.
I do not. I wasn't really collecting the DC action figures as heavily. And I'm looking at the wave that Mattel made to make that Build-A-Figure. And I have no desires for any of those characters.
That's what the figure was like, I don't know, $80.
Yeah.
Something like that. Complete.
Because if you were to get all, if you were to
buy the various parts individually too, they're like $20 or $10. Just like,
yeah, exactly.
How many figures was it?
On that particular line, it had 8 figures.
Oh wow!
And so you're looking at $199 for the wave.
Wow!
To get that, and so in it is Blue Devil. John Connor, Superboy, Wonder Girl, Jaime Reyes. Is it Reyes? The Blue Beetle.
Okay.
A character that must be from Fourth World, because I have no idea who he is. but he looks like a Kirby drawing.
Okay.
2 versions of Chitara. Is it Chitara, the Wonder Woman villainess that's a cheetah?
Okay.
Or is she just called the cheetah? So there's two versions of her, a classic one and then one with like long hair. And then you also have one of the guys from the Doom Patrol, whose name escapes me right now, the one with the bandages.
I forget his name too.
Yeah, so
Negative Man, right?
Negative Man. Is it Negative? I think so. But it's like it's a weird set in it. Or and you know, if you're making, you know, me, if I was making Trigun, I would want the classic Titans that were from the Perez run.
Right.
And maybe Raven. So it's like
Joe Rosas is with us tonight.
Joe,
you had all 3 figures, Jared. You'd have the Trigon Fecta. Hello. How you doing, Joe?
How's it going, Joe?
Oh, Joe. And Comic Crack says they did a Blue Devil figure?
Yes, they did. This was Mattel DCU Wave 13. Yes, Negative Man is the name. And Negative Man looks good. If you were collecting Doom Patrol, he would be a good character to have with your set.
He was the guy who left his body, right?
Yes.
He had the bandages, and he was like all black when he came out.
He came out, he was like yeah. Okay. So you could get Trigun by himself for like $60. You could get him loose. He's not too expensive of a figure. And he stands a little taller than the other Build-A-Figures. Than the other figures, because that's the whole concept of the Build-A-Figures, to get something larger than life kind of a thing. And I'm fine. I like physically building the figures. Those are a lot of fun. But again, none of those other toys from that line is this, that I would desire. If I was putting together a Teen Titan line, I would be upset with this line, because it's like, in order to get, Wonder Girl, I would get Wonder Girl, and it's like, now I got a piece of him,
right?
And I would like to have him with the set. If you're making,
like, Robin, Kid Flash, Wonder Girl, Raven, Starfire, and Cyborg.
Exactly. You want to eventually make
Beast Boy.
Yeah. You want to make that line of Teen Titans, the George Perez line.
You buy the new Teen Titans, you get the Trigon Build-A-Figure. That would make perfect sense.
Yes. So I could
no wonder they didn't do it.
I would imagine, in order to make these toys, because again, the DC toys, like the Marvel characters, there are some hits and misses, and in order to get this done, you got to get that done, kind of a thing. So I imagine that's probably why he was left to this line, Wave 13. So all the really good characters are made in the first couple of waves.
Yeah.
Because Robin, I would assume, is in one of the Batman waves.
Yep. Let me show you. Oh, speaking of the Teen Titans, I got a facsimile edition this week of DC Comics Presents number 26, which has the original Teen Titans preview in it.
Ah, okay. I think I saw your YouTube or your TikTok about talking about those. Yeah.
This is the first appearance of the new Teen Titans. It was worth quite a bit of money in the 80s. They even have a fake cover on it. And this was, and it's got its own story too. It's not like they took pages of Teen Titans #1 and stuck it in here. It's his actual own 8-page story. That's how they did these previews back in the day. But this is one I've never had. I'm trying to remember. I have to look through. I'm like, did I get a facsimile of this a few years ago? I don't think I did, but I may have. I'm not 100.
I don't think one came out for Teen Titans.
I don't think so either. But after I bought it, I was like, do I have, because now we're on like second printings of facsimiles, and this one does not say second printing, but I was just like, I'm gonna have to look and see.
And it would have made sense to make one when they had the TV show come out.
Right.
They had Teen Titans, but I don't know.
Well, they could have done Teen Titans #1 for that. Who knows? I didn't have it in my database, and it's not in with my Teen Titans issues. But I haven't checked where I keep I have a box down here of my facsimiles from DC, which I haven't checked either. So, but either way, I bought it. I think it was a $5 facsimile too, rather expensive.
Yeah. Now you said that story is an original story, just
an original story.
Book.
Yes,
that's actually pretty cool. I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, they did that with a bunch of stuff in the early, like I think Night Force was one they did that. The stuff that debuted whenever this was, 1980 or so. They did a few of these bonus comics in the middle. So what year did this come out? Does not give us, I do not see the original year. 2020. Oh, 1980. There we go. So this came out. So in 1980, they did a bunch of them like that. The Teen Titans was the only one that was worth any money. Well, let's see.
Sometimes DC does hit it well when they do stories within the stories. Like I remember talking to Mike Harlan. There was an issue, Superman, where his powers aren't working right. So he could hear everything on the planet. And Mike made sure that he went to everyone's books that was coming out that week. That issue was being printed. And he took copies of all the dialogue.
Oh, wow.
And just put the same balloons. So when it went, whatever was out that week, I believe it was the week. I don't think it was the month. Whatever was out that week, the panel had a small Superman's head. And then he was just surrounded by all the word balloons of everything that was going on in the DC comics that particular week.
Comic Crack asks, have they ever done a wave where the whole thing is made up of smaller versions of the Build-A-Figure? Build-A-Figures from previous waves, I mean.
They have not. The whole purpose of the Build-A-Figure is that you can get a character that's usually a monster, or in this case, a demon god, that would be larger than the regular figures.
Yeah.
And that they make it a Build-A-Figure because of the price of what you get one figure for. You get that Build-A-Figure piece as an accessory. So the price of the figure itself would be too much to produce by itself as a figure. Now you have what are called deluxe figures, which are sometimes they'll do a larger figure that comes with a whole bunch of extra stuff, and that it is pricier, but you get a bunch of things in it. Case in point, one of the more recent one was an Olden figure. So now you have, Thor's father, a lot bigger than all the other figures around, and it comes with a whole bunch of stuff, different staffs, his birds, both crows. So they call it a deluxe figure instead of doing a Build-A-Figure. But there's no real purpose to make a large figure that's a character who is large, making it small to sell it by itself, or make it smaller.
So if you were putting out, like they were putting out a line of 6-inch figures,
right?
To add an 8-inch figure to that line would cost too much money because you now need 8-inch packaging. Now need they can't all go in the same shipping box. So I guess the way they figured out, and also to sell extra of those 6-inch figures, and those 6-inch figures usually came with some sort of accessory too.
Usually they did.
So there was a cost to that too. So in order to get you that 8-inch figure and sell more figures, to sell the whole set, they put that 8-inch figure in pieces in each of the 6-inch figures. That way, that like if a 6-inch figure was $20, and if they wanted to do an 8-inch figure, that would probably make it cost $30 or $40 because all of a sudden it can't go with the set.
Right.
You now have a set of one. that has to ship with this set of 8, which logistically makes things too expensive. So if you put that, build a figure in there instead of an accessory, it keeps the price at $20.
Right. And then you kind of have the choice of, all I want out of this whole set is that one character. I'm getting that one character.
Right.
And or if you got, or the smart way that they're thinking, well, if you got 7 out of the 8 figures,
may as well get that 8.
Might as well get that 8, so you have 9 characters all together in your collection.
And there's going to be someone who just wants that one figure, so maybe they'll buy all of them just to get that one Build-A-Figure.
Yes.
So,
and that's the thing, that sometimes it's like, I do have characters I have no care for, but I wanted to do the Build-A-Figure itself.
Mm-hmm. Again, yeah, it is a way to get a larger figure into a smaller set.
Yeah. And then it scales with those figures because that character is supposed to be tall and or monstrous. And I do like the Marvel monsters.
Right.
And in order to get them, it was the Build-A-Figure way to do it. Plus, I like the whole 3-dimensional puzzle of it. Snapping it together. For me, that's a lot of fun.
Let's see. Damian Dyer says, I always wanted that book for the Superman Green Lantern cover, which always gets overlooked. Which of the 2 stories is better? I haven't reread this yet, but this was actually a decent... Is this Starlin? Starlin did some nice issues here. I don't know if this was his. What do we got? Marv Wolfman and Jim Starlin. So there was some... Matter of fact, I think Mongol was created around this time.
Yeah.
In these issues. So in the 20s, there are some good Jim Starlin issues. I think this is one of them too. But the Teen Titans story was pretty good too. I've read both these stories before, but it's been a while. And I didn't get to read it yet this week, so I was in no rush to read it. I read everything else, except my 2 DC reprints. Oh, yeah. I got this last week. I haven't read it yet. I picked up the... DC's only called them, I think, special editions, which is just Treasury Edition for Marvel describes it. So this is like a Treasury Edition size. And it's got Jose. The reason I picked it up is the Jose Garcia Lopez art.
Yeah, that's a good reason to pick it up.
Yeah, I didn't even know. I don't even remember seeing this though I don't know who this little person Hitler. But this whole story I think takes place during World War II. Because I just read the opening page, which takes place during the Battle of Midway. But the Jose Garcia Lopez art is just so nice. And with Dan Adkins inking them, which makes it even more sort of illustrative. Oh, and they end up on the moon. Like I said, I haven't read the story, but now they're on the moon. So I look forward to checking this. Just thumbing through it, it's beautiful, So, and it's what is this? DC had such good names for these. This is All New Collector's Edition, Volume 7, number C54. Like, what?
That's not confusing at all.
No.
Can I see that back cover?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Was not what I thought it was. Okay.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. The battle you thought you'd never see. But that's a pretty cool one. Like I said, I just happened to be looking around the shop a little bit last week, and I saw that one over in the section where they've got all the newest, the facsimiles of those DC special editions. So I was like, ooh, I'm going to pick this one up. Mm-hmm.
It's a nice oversized book. I think I remember seeing it at the comic shop, and it's like, no, I never read that story.
No,
I don't even know if they ever reprinted them small or not.
I don't think they did. I'm trying to think. Marvel reprinted a couple of theirs small, but that was it.
Yeah, I don't think they ever did all of them. Like they could do a whole series on just the big ones.
Like I remember Marvel reprinted Captain America's Bicentennial Battles, the Jack Kirby one, in one of their collected editions.
Mm-hmm.
But not sure. Joe Rosas. I love all those treasury editions. The artwork is always top notch, with the exceptions of some of the reprinted stories. LOL. Yeah, I liked them too. I have a bunch of them. I got them when I could. As a matter of fact, I don't even know where I got most of, like my earliest treasury editions, like stuff from the 70s. I think I got from people. People would occasionally give them to me. I think I got some of them via the Kid Network around the neighborhood. It wasn't until I think the very early 80s, my earliest years of high school, there was actually a store near me that sold them. So like the later ones, like stuff from the like maybe late 70s into the early 80s, I bought off the stands. But everything before then was given to me somehow.
Yeah,
because I never saw them on the shelf in the 70s mostly.
Yeah, I think the only time I ever got treasury editions is when they would occasionally pop up. This would be in the late 80s, early 90s at St. Mark's Comics in the Village. Would occasionally have like a, they have back issue bins and stuff like that. But they would occasionally have, right before the toy section, like a basket. And in there would be a few treasury editions that they got in that were used, but not completely beat up. They were okay conditions, enough to be affordable to buy. And I think I have gotten like the Christmas ones, because those seems to be the ones that are easy to get as far as treasury editions went, that you could find back issues at a fairly good price. And so I have like one or two of the Christmas ones.
Joe Rosas asks, wasn't the first Treasury Edition sized edition Superman versus Spider-Man? No, that wasn't the first Treasury Edition, I don't think. No, that was, they chose the Treasury Edition because that was such a big story. But I don't think that was the first Treasury Editions. There were ones before it.
Yeah, and technically Wizard of Oz is the first Treasury Edition.
No, that's not. I don't think that's the first Treasury Edition. That's the first Marvel DC crossover.
Right, but it wasn't. I thought it was the first Treasury as well.
I don't know. It may have been, because DC also put out like Action Comics and Detective Comics 27 as like those tabloid size editions. I think they were out even before the special editions. Those were the ones that people confused for the actual Action Comics #1, because they're like reprints of Action and I think Detective, or maybe Batman #1. I can't remember which. And they came with covers, famous first editions. Is that what they were called?
It might have been.
And they had like a famous first edition cover wrapped around the Action Comics #1 cover, and that would sometimes get torn off, and people would think they had an Action Comics #1.
Mm-hmm.
I found most of them in the dollar bins, which I'd buy all of them. LOL, Joe says. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those Treasury editions. They were so. It's nice that they're reprinting some of those at Treasury edition size.
So according to Wikipedia, 28 Marvel Treasury editions from 1974 through 1981. Mm-hmm. And the very first one, 1974, was called The Spectacular Spider-Man.
Okay.
And that reprinted Amazing Spider-Man comics as well as Marvel Superheroes. And they jumped around. So it's Amazing Spider-Man 8, 14, 42, and 90. And Marvel Superheroes 14. And parts of Amazing Spider-Man 72 and Annual 1.
Must be pinups or something for that, or those pages that explained what all his equipment was.
Yeah.
I imagine.
So I know I have the giant superhero holiday grab bag.
Yes, I have one of those.
8.
They put out a regular sized one of Marvel superhero holiday grab bag, I think a couple weeks ago. But it wasn't. It was a new holiday grab bag. Only was regular size, not Treasury Edition size.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that. Joe Rose says, I remember the Joe Kubert's The Bible Treasury Edition from DC. I remember the ads for that, but I don't think I've ever seen the actual Treasury Edition. Yeah, it figures they'd start with Spider-Man.
Oh, and they also did a title called Special Edition. So there was 3 issues of that, which was the Spectacular Spider-Man. So they reprinted that as number 1. And then Star Wars.
Okay.
They all had their own edition numbers, so 1, 2, and 3. And then Close Encounters is numbered as 3.
Okay, so those were all Treasury Edition sized, but not Treasury Editions.
Right, so they were called Marvel Special Edition.
Right, I think I may have 1 or 2 of those.
And then you have Marvel Treasury Special, which the Captain America Bicentennial is a part of.
Ah, because that was an original one, Bicentennial Battles. That was an original story in that one, not reprints.
And then they have listed under other Marvel treasures, the MGM Wizard of Oz book. So it probably didn't have the logo on there that was Treasury Edition.
That was Marvel and DC co-publication.
Right.
Joe Rosa says, yeah, you can't go wrong with that size. Yeah. You can really disappear into the story. Definitely. I loved those ones. They were fun stuff. Like I said, he's seen that Jose Garcia Lopez story so big is good stuff.
Yep, definitely.
Let me pull out another comic. What else did I get today this week? There we go. We'll pull out randomly. Creep Show, Volume 3, Issue 4. I think there's only one more issue in this volume. There's I don't know that's Creep's name. I don't know the host's name. And this is, I've been getting the covers in this, of course they have multiple covers, but the A cover has been done by Martin Morazzo, who's the Ice Cream Man artist. He's done a good series of covers with this. And let's see, Mike Carey and Mark Torres do, this is always like 2 10-page horror stories, and both of them were pretty good in this one. Mike Carey and Mark Torres do the first one, and Aki Bright does the second one. I don't know who Aki Bright is. I've never heard of him before. But he did a nice job on his horror story with a woman getting a face transplant. Of course, things don't go well. And the first story was a soldier who made a deal with the devil that the soldier could never die. Of course, that doesn't go well either.
Of course not.
But I must say, this has been my favorite of the horror anthologies that have come out in the last couple of years. Better than the EC relaunch stuff that I read, though I only read 2 issues of that, and that was enough for me. I've been enjoying these Creep Show ones. Of course, they've also got trade paperbacks of the first 2 volumes out if you want to read them in trade paperback form. But I definitely like looking at some of the cover. I mean, this is one where I would like them to put out a collection of the covers of the Creep Shows, because they're right. I really like most of them. There's some good horror art in there. Creep. What was this from? Image? Yeah. Image and Skybound. So I guess it's Kirkman's imprint.
Right.
I'm looking at the cards, and there's no aces and eights. The classic dead man's hand. Mm-hmm. Are you a horror fan?
I never really got into them. There were some books that I got over the years. Like I've only read one that was really creepy, that I could say almost scared me. And all it was a story of, if I even remember correctly, because I don't recall who published it. It might have been, I want to say, a DC book, if it was.
Right.
And I remember the story had to deal with like a kid stopping off at a gas station, seeing another kid is like in the gas station, because it's really someone's house that has a gas station in front of it. And so he keeps seeing a kid in the attic, and somewhere across the story, you find out the kid in the attic is like a ghost or something. So that kid is stuck there. But that was like the only one I remember reading when I was really young. And it was an early comic book. And it might have been before I was really collecting comics. I remembered the story, but I don't remember the actual book itself.
You remember being creeped out by it.
I remember being creeped out. I was like, oh, that's a horror book that actually scared me. Other than that, we're always the head buried in the sand and the ocean is coming for him. And then
that was Creepshow.
Yep. So you got Creepshow and stuff like that. But other than that, horror really wasn't my thing in general. So I didn't read any of the Dracula stuff or even knew who Blade was until I was an adult. So I didn't go into those kind of books. If it wasn't affecting Spider-Man, I didn't care. So, and so I'm trying to remember, was there anything that I picked up when I was younger that it's like, oh, I enjoyed this because it was part of that. But, I've read like the House of, DC printed out a bunch of them.
The House of Mystery, the House of Secrets.
Right. So I read a few of those. And again, it was one of those,
very little horror to be found in there.
Right. I was more interested in the brothers that hosted Cain and Abel. I was more interested in them than the stories they were kind of like hosting, like the Creeper would do. I found the Creeper more interesting, the concept of the Crypt Keeper more interesting than the actual stories.
I always find it funny when I hear 70s Marvel and DC referred to as their horror books, because we never called them horror books when we were kids.
No,
they're always the mystery books because there was like no horror to be found. They were so tame that there was like hardly any horror to be found. Oh, look, what's going on, guys? Happy New Year's! It's Ian and Becca Comics. Happy New Year's to you too.
Happy New Year's to you.
Jared, do you think comics have a diversified in content in the past, say, 10 to 20 years? Yes. I think they have for the most part. I would say, I've discussed this before. It has taken 20 years for the comics code to lose its grip on comics. And that has done more, I think, to diversify comics than just about anything. Because, comics were infantilized for a lot of years because of the comics code. And even like horror comics or comics that weren't under the comics code, indie stuff, a lot of times the stuff people would put out was a direct reaction to the comics code. And I came up with that idea back, I don't know, about 10, 15 years ago when I first read, they started reprinting a bunch of pre-code horror comics. Hey, Chris Gerusso's with us. Good evening, Chris.
What's up, you guys?
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Sleepy Reader's saying hello to us too. Hello, Cavern Dweller. So, and if you read those pre-code horror comics, it's the uncensored mind that is writing them, because things would just happen in them that it's like nobody would get their comeuppance. I always point to this one story I read where this old man was dying, rich old man was dying, and he wanted to test his children to see who really loved him and was worthy of the inheritance. Well, none of the kids passed the test, and they all just died. The old man was like, oh, well, I got no kids to pass on my inheritance to then. And that was like the end of the story. And that's like how a lot of, I noticed, pre-code stuff was written. It was just kind of like with this uncensored mind.
Right.
There was once the code happened and you could see that they're writing with censorship. So it was a lot different. And then even like when the code went away, it still had a lingering effect on everything. The censored mind, the people were still used to being censored, writers and artists. And like I said, even the ones who were rebelling against the censorship were rebelling against kind of what specifically they couldn't do, they did.
Right.
So in a way, they were still under the idea of that censorship. They were just doing opposite of it. It wasn't until I think the last, 5-10 years that people have stopped, writers and have stopped operating without that idea of censorship in their head. So yeah, that's when I say comics have gotten sort of more diversified in content in the past 10 to 20 years. I think that has more to do with it than anything else. Is even Marvel and DC, they're doing stuff they never could have done before.
Right.
In terms of just adult stuff with their I'm not really that familiar with the Marvel and DC stuff, but I've read stuff in there that I'm going like, what? Like Marvel and DC, I notice Marvel and DC superheroes have all slept with each other by this point. There was none of that going on all the way up. Even in the 90s, there was one couple, like, Rogue and Gambit. And then there was a few love triangles. But by this point, it's like everybody slept with everybody, and it's just kind of part of the landscape. And I think that's part of the uncensored mind. So yeah, I think they have diversified. Look, superheroes still rule. What do we got here from Ian Becker Comics? Hey, Jared, what's your favorite comic shop in New York? Mine is Forbidden Planet. I don't go to comic shops in the city that often. My local comic shop is in Pearl River, New York, which is half an hour outside of New York City. But I used to always go to Jim Hanley's Universe all the time, but that's gone now. I always liked that one. I used to go to Forbidden Planet when I was downtown, but I was always in Midtown more than I was downtown. So I always went to Jim Hanley's more than Forbidden Planet. But I can remember the first time I got to go to Forbidden Planet. I found it a lot of fun. I was probably in college at the time and went down to Forbidden Planet. And I like Midtown Comics. I've gone to the one on 40th Street more than the one that Wilson goes to.
Right. I go to the one that's by Grand Central Station.
Right.
It's more convenient for me to get to there. I like Forbidden Planet. I have fond memories of Forbidden Planet when I was in high school because it was in a better location when I was younger. Mm-hmm. But it was never a friendly store, I would say. So when I was high school, you go in, you got your books, you left. There's no talking. I was always busy, always.
It wasn't unfriendly either. No, it was just all business.
It was just all business. So yeah, that's a better way to say it. It was all business.
Though I was just reading a little post by someone who said that they didn't when he used to go to Forbidden Planet when he was younger, and they didn't mind if you sat there and read the comics. So this kid sat there and read comics, and I've heard stories like that. But I was in college by the time I got to Forbidden Planet, so it didn't occur to me to sit there and read comics.
Right. It didn't occur to me to do that either.
Yeah, we were too old for that.
Yeah, to me it felt like that when you go in, you got your books, you left. So not to say that they were unfriendly, which is that's what you did.
Yeah. I just wanted to make that clear because I don't think they were ever an unfriendly store. They were just all, because it was like you didn't even see the people who worked there when you were back at the comics. They were kind of all up front, if I remember.
Right. They were all up front, and they were kind of like raised platforms.
Yes.
When you're buying the books, and I'm not that tall anyway, so I always felt like I'm almost reaching over the counter to give them the books. So it was like in and out, where other shops were more like I could spend hours there just talking to the people in general and who was working there. So I had more.
They'd have people walk on the floor.
Right. So saying something like as you mentioned, Hanley's was more of like you go in and we knew everybody and we by name and talking to them while we're shopping and whatnot, or become part of the conversation of whatever the topic that was going on. And then whereas now with Midtown, it's more you go in and say, hey, how's it going? Quick talk, what we're picking up and going. So where Forbidden, even to today, it's like I go in, get my books and go. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of fun in all the New York shops. There's not as many as there used to be. There was some that were a lot of fun.
And I guess Ian in Cavern, Connecticut. Are there local Connecticut shops you go to? Sleepy Reader says, I think the rise of graphic novels has been, part of expanding the diversity of types of comics. Yeah, I have to agree with you there, too. And getting all these different kids' comics in. Because, one of the biggest areas of comics we know is young adult comics. So they've expanded it. Forbidden Planet blew me away in the 80s. Wonder if I'd be impressed now. Good question. Joe Rosas, Black Widow and Daredevil had a very public love affair when she became a race, but their love affair was very chaste. There wasn't much talk about their love affair. They were just kind of a couple, and that was it. The X-Men is different now. There's nothing chaste about their affairs. It's still so awesome. I love the one in Union Square. Okay, I don't think I've been to that one. I've went to. Where was the Forbidden Broadway and 8th Street? Was that where Forbidden Planet is? Like across the street from the Strand.
Yeah.
It was around there.
So when it was the big store, it was across street from the Strand.
Right.
On the corner. Then it moved into across the street from there on another corner. And then now it's like in the middle between the where they used to be.
Okay.
So they went like a store or two down from it. So
I don't have been to it since they were across the street from the Strand.
It's smaller. I wouldn't call it a boutique store, but you could easily see. You could almost call it that. It's a good size. Definitely bigger than what Hanley's eventually had gotten. So it's a fairly good size store, but it gets crowded quickly because you have great foot traffic in that area. But I don't know how much of them are like weekly collectors or there's a comic book shop, let's go in, kind of a thing.
Let's see. Joe Rosas says, for me it was Oakland, California. I can't remember the store's name that had back issues stacked on wood shelves, not bagged at all. Yep. You could sit on the floor and read them. That reminded me too of what was that movie? About the young kids who were vampires, the teenagers who were vampires out in California. Stay young, live forever. Oh God, all of a sudden the name of the famous movie, you know it.
I know exactly which one you're talking about, but the name
Lost Boys?
Lost Boys. There we go.
That's exactly it.
They have a scene in a comic book shop there, and it's like none of the took place in the early. It was made in like the mid '80s, no, not everything wasn't bagged. That's just the way things were in those days. Huh. Ian Beckett comment says, yes, we are former New Yorkers. Our local Connecticut shop is Second Alarm. Great store. Okay.
Very cool.
Okay. Yeah, I'm over here in Rockland County, New York, just north of the city. Ian Beckett, we are also big fans of the Strand. Yeah, Forbidden Planet and Union has moved around on the same block. Okay.
Yeah, they're almost on the same street all the time, but they moved 3 times since I remembered them.
And now that Chris is here, I can pull out a couple of things, but we'll start with last week came out X-Men 9 with the Chris Russo cover. And I can't remember if this is the 3rd or 4th one that came out. I haven't checked my shelf yet.
Should be the 3rd one.
It's the 3rd one then. Okay. And the story inside has been continued through all the issues. It's continued from Uncanny X-Men into X-Men. So that you get to read one story along with your Chris Russo covers. And it's a pretty interesting. I still don't know why the Alaska X-Men and the Louisiana X-Men don't like each other, but they don't. And they're trying to rescue the X Mansion has been turned into a prison for mutants, and they're trying to rescue the Beast and a couple other people. But it's like the two rescue teams, the Louisiana X-Men and the Alaskan X-Men, are fighting with each other as well as the prison guards. So it's kind of like, what's going on here? But not bad. I'm enjoying the story to go along with my Chris Russo covers. Let's see. Sleepy Reader's got a question for Chris. Chris, do they ask you for homage covers? Oh, look. Wilson's got his too. I believe the answer to that is yes, right? Or I know it is for the Venom ones, right?
It was for the Venom ones. And then when that happened, when the Venom ones were happening, I said, hey, check this out. Because I had already done these X-Men pieces as a commission.
Okay.
And then they said, yeah, okay, we'll use those. So
cool.
That's how that happened.
I actually tried it a couple of times because Ed Murr commissioned Herb Trimpe to draw a new Hulk 181 cover. Not an homage, just a new sort of interpretation of it. And that would be a really cool thing for Marvel to put on a cover. I mean, that'd make a nice cover. I mean, an unseen Herb Trimpe Hulk 181 cover.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I couldn't get anyone who I knew interested in it. I was just like, oh, well, maybe some other time I'll try.
Did they ever use that Ditko cover for Amazing Fantasy 15?
Yeah, they used that. They used that on a couple of things. I think they used it on like X-Men. I mean, on Spider-Man like 600 also they used it. But I know they've used that a few times. But yes, I've been picking up my Chris Russo covers.
Thank you, Jared.
Yeah.
And to all.
Let's see. Ian and Becca, do you go to Sleepy Reader asked, do you go to Comics and Coffee in Deep River? Let's see where. Joe Rosa says for New York City Comic Shop, it was St. Mark's Comics. I loved how it was set up. The problem I had with St. Mark is St. Mark's Comics still open? I think they closed and then opened again or something.
They closed a while back, but the name still exists. So they had like a presence in New York Comic Con. So I think it might be one of those situations where they have a warehouse they sell out of, and then they do some appearances. I don't think they have like a brick and mortar store to go to, but I think they have an online presence.
Yeah, when I would occasionally go to St. Mark's Comics when I was in the city, and the problem I had with it, especially being an indie guy, is they just had the indie books jammed into boxes in bins. Like the Marvel and DC stuff was generally pretty good. They had racks out there of stuff, but the racks, because the indie stuff's kind of got a longer shelf life, so they just jam the next issue of whatever, they just jam in with the last 10 issues.
Yeah.
It'd be like and they'd all kind of be, how those comics bend over once you get too many of them jammed into too small a space. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, oh man.
Yeah, because they would be
not in good condition.
No, that's because for those who haven't seen it, the way they used to have it set up on their downstairs, they used to be upstairs.
Right.
So their downstairs store would be the new books would be put on these wooden shelves. So they would be pockets. And then there would be a piece of wood across the pocket. And you had the comics sitting there. So, like you mentioned, they would stuff all those indie books into the pocket shelves where it would just get crushed and just stick out. And there, from what I recall, no real rhyme or reason. They would just be, the indies would be in the back with the adult books kind of mixed up.
Yep. If you were an indie collector, St. Mark's was a rough place to shop at. It was just they said they'd have, like I said, that pocket with the board in front of it, and they'd have 12 books stuck in a place for that only 8 books could fit in.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I found that a little disappointing, St. Mark's. Mm-hmm. I really want the X-Mansion Lego set, Becca says. Oh, I didn't know there was one. Joe Rosas is having deja vu with that X-Men issue. For those of you who don't know, did you color this cover, Joe? But Joe was the colorist on a lot of this era of Jim Lee X-Men. So if you dig out your X-Men #1s, Joe Rosas, I think Joe colored X-Men #1. I think he I knew he used to color a lot of Jim Lee's stuff, and we used to have Marvel had a colorer, 2 of them actually. They had George Roussos and sometimes Paul Becton would color all the covers. But I know sometimes they'd ask Joe to cover some covers. So I'm not sure if he originally colored this or not. We'll have to find out from Joe. But yes, Joe did a lot of coloring for Marvel in the early 90s, including a lot of X-Men stuff. He was in demand, and Jim Lee wanted him to color his X-Men. Ian and Becca will still go back into the city very often to visit family and shop. Yes, Sleepy. Heard from Birdie you were there. Comics and coffee is the best. Sleepy says, unfortunately, Second Alarm was closed that Tuesday, I&B, but coffee is great for digging in boxes. Yes, Joe did color this original cover. Did you color this cover, Chris?
Yeah.
Following Joe's original colors.
Yeah.
Look at that, all these years later.
He made it easy for me.
Any outer borough shops of note? I know there's some good ones in Brooklyn. Yes, on cover and interior. So he colored the interiors of X-Men 1, adjectiveless X-Men 1. We'll have to have Joe on the show some night, and we'll talk to him about coloring covers in the early 90s.
Speaking of coloring, it was like I did a whole little section on TikTok about explaining Blue Line.
Oh, I saw that, and then it disappeared on me somehow. I didn't get to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, so someone had asked a question. They bought a Dark Knight Returns, I think, mega book or one of those reprint books, and they were talking about Blue Line coloring in that. And it's like, can someone explain to me what that is? And I saw people were trying to answer it, but they were mistaking Blue Line penciling. That was so. I went on and was like, because all the social media really is book talk, show and tells, and so I did a whole section about coloring comics and what is a blue line compared to blue pencils, and then talking about that, and then having the actual Dark Knight Return book on me for that issue to show what it was, and then kind of do a little quick what's the difference between a trade paperback, what's a reprint, what's a graphic album, and just talking a little bit of everything, and then talking about what Blue Line is, and it was a lot of fun to do that, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Blue Line, full color coloring.
Yes.
Because they shoot right from that's for those of you who don't know. And was Dark Knight Returns Blue Line?
I guess it was, because when I was looking at it, it looks like it is a mixture of stuff and watercoloring on there. So I figured it would have had to be, especially the clouds and all that would have to either be watercolor. Right. If it wasn't watercolor, then maybe airbrush.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the rocket, that looks like it's airbrush, but the clouds and that looks like watercolor.
Right.
So I think it was a mixed media for the particular book. So I'm guessing that it was Blue Line. Though I've never seen the original pages for Dark Knight Returns. So I'm not too sure. But I know, we did a bunch of books that was all Blue Line. So
right. For those of you who don't know, the most comic books in those days were what they call 4-color. They still are basically, but you would the colorist would hand paint the colors on a photocopy, and then that would go to a separator who would hand paint in gray the separations, which would then go to make the printing plate. The difference with Blue Line coloring is you would that would be full color. The cheaper way to do it, it's amazing. The cheaper way to do it was with people hand separating it. The more expensive way to do it was photographically, where you'd take a picture of the painting and then make the printing plates through a photographic process with that picture. And that's what Blue Line is the actual painting you make, which is over a Blue Line printout. You would actually hand paint that, as he showed you in that Dark Knight, those clouds were hand painted. And then they use a photographic process to make the printing plates. Somehow the photographic process was more expensive than human beings.
Yeah.
And separating. That's kind of weird. Let's see. I think Comics and Coffee is hosting another huge sale at the end of January, so everyone should stay posted for that. It's going to be massive. Okay. The last sale, I got the Magic miniseries in the dollars bins. I'm not a fan of that Magic miniseries, but I mean, I bought it way back when. It was okay. But there's one cover on it one of my favorite covers of all time. Who does it? Is it Tom Palmer? And it's the one where Magic is like sitting cross-legged, like hovering above. I think she's got like a pentagram below her or something, and she's like hovering magically. And it's just a really well done. It's like issue 3 or 4 of the miniseries, but one of my favorite covers from that era. Damian Dyer says, is Chris G going to do some DC work too? If they hire him, he sure will.
Yeah, that's the detail.
Do you know any editors over at DC?
Do I?
Yeah. I don't know who's working. I mean, besides Marie, who I don't think is hiring anybody on an individual level anymore.
I have no idea.
Write your favorite DC editor and tell him to hire Chris G. Russo. Joe Rosas is up for that too. He usually announces his sales on his Instagram the week beforehand. Okay, that's Comics and Coffee in Connecticut.
I think Joe means that he's up for being on the show.
Oh, okay. He's up for being on the show. That's good. We're gonna have him we'll have an invite for him on the show. No problem. We'll see if he wants to come on next week. Or if he wants to come on right now, we'll have him on too. Joe wants to come on right now. I'll send an evite on Facebook. Otherwise, Joe Rosas. There he is. All right, Joe. I sent you an invite on Facebook if you want to come on now. Otherwise, you can come on anytime. No problem. What have you guys picked up lately? I got all the stuff I picked up lately. I'm going to be showing over the show because I got the last 2 weeks of comics. We'll show our other Chris Giarrusso book, which is the latest issue of Savage Dragon 274. And which comic is this? Which cover is this homaging?
Don't know.
It looks so familiar.
I mean, it looks like could be a Kirby Doctor Doom, maybe.
I don't know. It just looks
so
familiar that I figure it's got to be an homage, but he didn't write anything on it, and he usually does. Could be his own cover he's homaging. I don't know.
Could be that too.
But the long-awaited return of Mr. Glum, he's kind of been back for the last 6 months or so, but he's back again. And in the back, we have Great Man webcomics. Did you know this was in this particular issue, Chris?
Yeah.
And we get and have all these run. Some of them I know I've read before, but I don't think I've read all of them.
That's from phone it now.
We get some Great Man comics.
I haven't picked that up yet. That'll be next week's haul because I know I have a Dragon waiting for me.
And it's mostly Great Man at the con trying to sell his wares. So
it's all G-Man except the last page. You keep calling it Great Man. Great Man's on the last page on the back
this
cover.
is G-Man. Pardon me. Not Great. I forget. Great Man and G-Man are two different characters.
Yeah, brothers.
They're brothers. The G doesn't stand for great in G-Man.
All right. Just stands for G.
But Ian and Becca love Savage Dragon. It's a good one. But I got to say, the strip that was so Chris Giarrusso to me was the very last one. Right here. Where the guy says, today is free comic book day. You have to give me your books for free now. And G-Man says, fine, take them. And the guy just looks at him and walks away without the books. That to me is so autobiographical right there.
Yeah.
Of Chris trying to sell his comics at a Comic-Con. I mean, most of it is autobiographical, but that's the one that hit the home. I'm like, you know, he's tried to give them away before to some guy, and the guy's like, forget it.
It's the people.
What was that?
There's always. Well, I mean, just I've done the same joke like 100 times where it's like, you know what you should do? You should do T-shirts.
Yes.
Oh, I got T-shirts right here, and then they walk away.
Right. You
know what you should do? You should do a print. You should do prints of that. Oh, I got prints right here. And walk away.
Forget it.
The Venn diagram of people who say they want prints and people who buy prints is no overlap at all.
No overlap whatsoever. But a good issue of Savage Dragon and some good Chris Giarrusso strips in the back.
This is my other recent Chris Giarrusso cover that I picked up is Venom War issue 4.
Okay.
That I still have from the last time I picked up books. But I'm like 2 weeks behind on books.
So you've got 5 waiting for you then.
Yes. So I should have 5 waiting for me, Savage Dragon waiting for me, and I think one of the other X-Men should be waiting for me.
Sleepy Reader asks, does anyone buy T-shirts and prints? Yes, but not the people who ask for them. More people ask for them than buy them, I imagine.
Now, if we start putting prints on T-shirts, and name them both different things.
That's the trick.
Yep.
But and it's funny. I was just explaining who you are to somebody, because one of the video, I forget, it was one of the regular guys I watched too. Oh, I can't remember. Vin Crew, I think it was. Vin Crew 2000. I can't remember the number after his name, but he was showing some books he bought, and he picked up a book that he thought was Scotty Young, the cover, and it was a Chris Geruso. And he's like, I haven't heard of Chris Geruso. So I was explaining to him who you were.
Cool.
Eric P says T-shirts that you can put on the wall like a print. It comes with a frame. That way you're dragging frames to comic shows too.
There you go.
And the big thing I got this week, I did what I said I was going to do. Brilliant wall shirts, says Sleepy Reader. Wall shirts. There, we got a name for it now.
Here we are.
Remember I was telling you about how I was saving up my Amazon credit card points to get that hate?
Yes.
Well, I didn't get it.
Did you do what you normally do? Get another book?
Yeah. I got 4 Richard Corben
okay.
books. These were all from $20 to $25 a piece. These were the ones I was talking about last week that Dark Horse has been putting out. And man, the color reconstruction and the printing looks beautiful. Here, let me see if I can show this to you. Big. This is just one of them. This is the first one, Murky. And wow, the printing looks nice. The colors look like Corben colors. And they've been reconstructing the color. It's been, let me see his name. I've been following him a little bit on Facebook. Jose Villarubia, I think, has been doing has been and it looks so nice. It really, really looks good. I just got these. I think the $40 is the full retail price, and it came out in 2023. But what happened? Like I said this before. What happens on Amazon is it's usually below full retail price, and then it kind of drops down, and then goes out of print, and this price shoots up again. So I was trying to wait for that sweet spot. Yeah. I think I had these were all from 20 to, I think this one was probably 20 and the other ones were 22 or 23. So good prices on the other ones I got there's 3 volumes of Den, which is one of his recurring characters. This is volume. Oh, and also underneath the dust cover, they give you the full art of the cover.
Nice.
So you got the boring design cover and you got the full art cover. And once again, the printing is just terrific on these. Look at these. Look at these purples on this. Really nice. And I haven't even got a chance to look through these much. I just glanced at them before the show since they just came yesterday, and I just unwrapped them right before the show. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I haven't even, but man, they look, just glancing at them, the printing looked so good on them. So I still don't have that paint, but I figured I may as well get these before, they go out of print or something. also I have all the issues of hate. You know, I have them collected in the soft covers. I have the issues. So I'm like, once again, this is the third time I've saved up enough Amazon points to get that volume of Hate, which is at $85 now. It's usually somewhere from 85, and it's gone in and out of print too. There's volume 3 and volume 4. So I'm volume 2 and volume 3. Volume 4 is out, but it's still up at $35. So I didn't add that one in.
Now, I don't know if it was last week we were talking about or mentioned it, that there's also a Corben book being published that was never printed.
I don't know. I don't remember that. Maybe Comic Crack was talking about it. I think Comic Crack said something about that.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if it was part of that collection.
No, it's not part of this collection. Maybe, I think, because volume 4 is out now. I think he said volume 5 is coming out of stuff that's never been printed before.
Oh, okay.
Eric P says, I've also been saving my Amazon points, but I got a bunch of books over the holiday, so I'm holding off on using them. Yeah. Like I said, I was like, you know what? Why don't I get the stuff I don't have?
Yeah. It makes sense. You got, technically 4 books compared to the 1, and you already
Well, it's actually 2 big oversized ones. But yeah, it's 4 books of stuff I haven't read all of, too.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was like, it's a much better deal to get those first.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Is it Corbin's R Wolf? I don't know. Comic Crack told us last week, so I'm not 100% sure what it is that hasn't been printed. I don't remember. We'll have to check in with him.
Yeah.
I was driving.
I don't recall the name of the book either.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Oh, and speaking of books I don't know if I've read or not, I picked this up. Lover Boys off of eBay. This is one that's, you know what it is? These days, even if I have things on my Amazon wish list, I go check them on eBay too. And this was with shipping and tax, $10. I think it was like $50. I don't know what the original price is because I got a sticker over it because it came from some bookshop. And with Gilbert Hernandez's stuff, I'm never sure if it's an original graphic novel or I guess Our Wolf has never been reprinted. Maybe it's that one. I'm never 100% sure if it's original graphic novel or a collection of stuff that's run in, because he has more work than his brother Jaime Hernandez, and so he sometimes publishes original graphic novels, sometimes publishes miniseries like Psychodrama Illustrated, which is just an extension of his Love and Rockets stuff. So I'm not 100% sure if I've read this or not before. It doesn't look familiar. If I read it, it was years ago and only once. But I was like, you know what? For $10, I'll pick this up. What year did this one come out? Come on. I don't know why it says withdrawn on it either. Because it doesn't have library markings. It's got used bookstore markings.
Right.
So I don't know what withdrawn means in a used bookstore. This came out in 2014, and this is the second print. First edition, October 2014. But this is the second edition. This has been out since 2014. Maybe I read it in 2012. If it was in the Love and Rockets comic, maybe I didn't. Maybe it's an original graphic novel. I have no idea. But winner of the prestigious Penn Center USA's Graphic Literature Award, Gilbert Hernandez delivers a tale of hidden passion and revenge. I don't think I've ever heard of the Penn Center USA's Graphic Literature Award, but he won it.
Nice.
But I always like Gilbert's stuff. It's always good to read. I know you two have never read Love and Rockets, but you're missing out. And Sleepy has tried to start reading Love and Rockets this last year, but I don't think he took to it. Because Gilbert Hernandez has sort of a storytelling style that's different. I finally figured out after reading Love and Rockets for 30 years, Gilbert's storytelling style sort of is he creates characters, puts them in situations, and things happen to them. There's no really first arc, second arc, third arc of a story. It's like he takes all these characters, throws them in the bag, mixes them up, and sees what happens. Unless it's something like one of his books that's supposed to be an adaptation of one of the movies that the characters made in the world. So it's like, if you jump into the middle of a Gilbert Hernandez story, the usual tells aren't there. So it's a little weird. And I think Sleepy, I didn't like Gilbert's latest side miniseries. If that's Psychodrama Illustrated, that's really just an extension of his Love and Rockets stuff. Those are all his Love and Rockets characters going on with their life. And that's what I think it is. It's tough to... I like a lot of... Oh, Chris popped out for a second. I like a lot of his earlier work. Yeah, I think that was... His earlier work was more structured. Chris is back. I don't know why he dropped out.
That was happening yesterday.
Yeah, I think it happened last time you were on. I think his earlier work is more structured. His movie adaptations are more structured, but his Love and Rockets, Palomar stuff, I think is less structured. But then if you read something like the giant edition of Luba, it all makes more sense because all of the Luba and her sister stories are there. So it's a little weird reading Gilbert Hernandez. And he's just drawing tits and rape scenes now. He's always been drawing them. That's nothing new. There's all sorts of questionable... Well, that's part... I think that's part of the Spanish soap opera-ness of them. I don't know much about Mexican soap operas, but they're very influential on his storytelling. 62 Lefty Blues says, Love and Rockets is great. I'm reading all the Jaime stuff first and then the Beto books. Yeah. I've been reading it for a long time now, so I enjoy them.
Yeah, when you mentioned the Mexican books, I could see exactly what you mean, because I have picked up a few over the years. There was a time that, I'd be traveling to the subway station and looking at what they may have on, on the newsstands. Mm-hmm. And, though they didn't really have much comics, they still had some of the Mexican novellas. And I was like, all right, I know a little Spanish. I know enough to read it. And it's a comic book, so you could kind of read what's going on the page. And the ones that they would have were mostly, or the ones that I saw, they were mostly romance books, mostly cowboys, mostly a Western, and it would have a lot. It would have a lot of topless scenes, and it was like you could easily see the influence. Those would be smaller magazines, black and white. Mm-hmm. And you could definitely see the influences there.
Yeah.
And I had picked up a few over the years just to try to, figure out what was going on. And it was like, all right, so I see where they're going with this. And then the opposite side of ones I would pick up would be a cartoony one about this. The main character was a bird, which I forget the name, but it's like just as famous as being like Woody Woodpecker. Like everyone knew this character, and you would buy it, and it would be that running gag of the last joke would be something unexpected, and people would be jumping out of their feet, jumping off the panel with their feet thing. So the story didn't run through the whole course of the comic. Each page was just a joke page. And this character, this anthropomorphic bird character, would be either the one making the joke or saying the joke, but it always ended with the characters falling off the page or falling to the ground. Kind of the thing was the gag joke that they used to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Betos stuff really has Mexican soap opera in it. Wilson, no Mexican wrestling comics?
No, there wasn't any that, when I was looking for stuff, I would try to grab stuff that kind of looked like superheroes. And yeah, they had the luchador stuff, but none of it ever grabbed me because it would be guys in masks, shirtless, running around with a cape. And it's like, I don't understand what any of this is. And like, I know I picked up one of the more famous ones, but it didn't hold on to me. And again, with the language barrier, that yes, Spanish was my first language, but I also grew up in the New York City school system where they beat the language out of you. So it was pretty tough trying to even get to read those comics.
Comic Crack says, I'm back from dinner. What did I miss? You missed me showing the Richard Corben books that I said I was going to get instead of that big hardcover edition, which with my Amazon points, and us wondering what Corben book was it you told us last week there was never before printed stuff that's coming out. Wilson and Sleepy Reader were just asking about that. Boom, Corben Beauty, yeah. Sleepy wanted to know it was Corben's R Wolf. That has never been reprinted. But I think it was you, Comic Crack, last week were mentioning something about maybe it was Den number 5 that had never been printed before. Because I've got 1 through 3 and 4's out. Dimwood comes out this year. One more volume of Den, volume 5 comes out first, though. Okay, Dimwood. I still have to get volume 4, but that was out of the budget for right now. But it's on my Amazon wish list. I'll get it. That's the thing, too, about getting like the collected editions. A lot of times there's no rush on them.
Yeah.
Eric P. released February 5th for Den Volume 5, The Price of Memories. Like, you just want to get them before they go out of print and the price rises. Let's see, what else did I get these last 2 weeks? Sure, that one. Here's one I tried out and was disappointed with. Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger. It's a Spawn book, 37 pages for $3.99. And I bought it because Jimmy Palmiotti was writing it. I know Jimmy and follow him on Twitter, so he said he was writing it, so I figured I'd check it out. Art by Patrick Reynolds, colors by Luis NCT, lettering by Tom Orzechowski, and some nice artwork. I just found it a little too nothing. There was a lot of pages establishing Gunslinger Spawn as a badass. It was just like Western badasses left and right being badasses. Not very excitingly, in my view. It wasn't bad or anything. It just didn't grab me. I think it's only a mini. It's like 4 issues. But the artwork is kind of cool. Very nice Western artwork. There's next issue. Only from Image Comics, number 2. Maybe I'll pick up another issue. Maybe I won't. I don't know. Like I said, the first issue really didn't grab me.
I find it strange on that cover design to drop the trade dress logo and then stick a text, not that text on that corner.
The 37 pages blurb.
Yeah, that's just odd that it's there.
I think they're explaining why it's not $2.99 because all the Spawn books have been coming out at $2.99.
Right. But it's weird to just drop the main logo.
Why wouldn't you? I guess they really want you to know it's 37 pages.
Yeah.
They really want you to know that. But it was just okay. I've read better writing by Jimmy.
Right.
Comic Crack says Drawn and Quarterly is starting to reprint Kamui in a week or two. There's going to be 10 volumes, total 600 pages each, I think. I still have my issues of Kamui. It was one of the, I think, first comics in the 80s, one of the first two manga to come over here were Kamui and Mai the Psychic Girl. Don't have my the Psychic Girl issues anymore. They're in France now. I sold them on eBay. But my Kamui ones are still somewhere. I haven't read it since the 80s.
I don't know if I picked up Kamui. I know I picked up Mai. That was for sure.
Comic Crack says June 10th is what Dark Horse is saying about as a release date about Richard Corben's Dimwood. Oh, it's Eclipse. I still have my Eclipse issues of Kamui as well. It's so good. How many... And like Kamui was done in the 60s, I think. I just read. I didn't realize it was like considered one of the old masters of manga in the 80s.
Yeah, 1964.
I did not realize that.
I did not read this book.
So if that's 6,000 pages, how many pages did Eclipse publish? Maybe 30 issues?
I think he says 600 pages.
He said 600 pages. Oh, 10 volumes total, 600 pages each.
Oh, okay.
So there was a lot of Kamui. How much? If Eclipse published 30 issues of 25 each, how many fours go into 30? That'd be maybe 600, 800 pages. Maybe volume 1. Started in the 60s, yes. Was part of a magazine called Garrow, which is much more of an underground alternative comics anthology. What size is it being printed at? I wonder if it's going to be that 6x9 size or the 7x10 American size. Oh, and here's something I was trying out this afternoon. I was just swatching them. I think I got these for Christmas off of my wish list. Have you heard of Posca markers before?
I have not. Those acrylic markers?
These are paint markers, yeah.
Okay.
And I think these ones have been around for a while. Before everybody was doing paint markers, Posca was doing paint markers. So they've been around for a while, and I got to say, they were really hard to start. They were the kind of markers that have the metal ball bearing in them to mix up the paint.
Right.
And then you have to get it started, the tip is white, and you have to keep pressing down on the tip and move and shaking it to get the paint flowing through the tip, and then you're good. And if it stops, you have to do that again if you let them sit for a while. And I got to say, it took like 100 presses of each tip to get that paint flowing. I thought they were broken at first. I was like shaking and pressing and shaking, and it took me like a minute each one to get this paint flowing. After it did, I at least got them swatched, so I haven't actually tried to make anything with them. Trim size is 6.6 by 8.8 is what that's the manga size. The 6x9, right around 6x9 size.
So those aren't the same markers you're using on your pops.
I'm gonna be using them on my pops, but no. But these are all the markers. There's the Posca ones down the bottom. But I got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 different sets of paint markers: Sharpie, Moygan acrylic, Art Sign acrylic, and Tammet Dual acrylic. And those were fairly cheap sets that I got. But I did finish painting another pop. Hold on. I can't remember who this guy is. He's from the Eternals movie. I mean, you can't tell who it is now. Except he had a flaming hand, which I painted all orange, along with his other hand. Gave him polka-dotted purple boots, some weird X symbol on his chest. I don't know, another weird symbol. Painted his hair multicolors. I like the third eye thing, as always. I'm going to have to go into the garage and get his box to see who he is, because I don't remember. But yeah, finished. I've had him on my drawing table for about a month now. I just picked it up every now and then, and painted a little bit on him. Finally, this past weekend, I'm like, I should finish this one. Now we got to put them up with the finished ones and figure out what I'm going to do with them. I might bring him to Mocha Fest.
Mm-hmm.
If my school is doing Mocha Fest again this year, which I think they're gonna. And we've reached the halfway point with Penthouse Comics of our over-under, which I think is 11 issues.
I think so.
Though they didn't give us any numbers in this, because like the first 2 issues, they were like, oh, we sold this many. We're so happy to have sold this many copies. And in this issue, it tells us Year 1 of Penthouse Comics is over. Finite, complete, done. Thankfully, due to fantastic sales, you have brought this series. We're proud to say that Year 2 of Penthouse Comics is coming. Not missing a single beat either, picking up with a single issue off in February. Okay. And what's interesting is they're, I think they're renumbering it with issue 1 again. Yeah. So it's going to be February, March 2025, issue 1. So I guess they're numbering it along with the years, even though this one is December, January, number 6.
So would they be changing the volume?
I don't know. Let's see if it's got a volume on it. Copyright. It's got a copyright, but I don't see. Just says Penthouse Comics, doesn't have a volume. They're probably like every other comic book company, doesn't bother with volumes anymore.
Yeah.
There's no indicia that gives you its official name. Besides telling you who owns the trademarks. Comics has an R next to it. But what's funny is I Spit on Your Grave, part 5, that ended with this issue. Gun Crazy, part 6, which they said ended. They gave us a fin, F-I-N, for the end, except it ended right in the middle of the story. They're like, Gun Crazy will return in Penthouse Comics Year 2. I'm like, that's not.
Yeah, that's not how that works.
That's not the end. You ended right in the middle of the story. Because Gun Crazy has been a story about a bunch of characters, like they're kind of all on their own through the American Southwest, and they're all all of their stories are merging together in Vegas. So they finally were all merging into Vegas in this chapter, and it just stopped. I'm like, hey, that's not the end. You just stopped the story. And then what do they have? The Dead All Have the Same Skin, Part 5, based on the original graphic novel. That one actually ended. And I don't think in Part 4, this one just sends end of book 2. They didn't give us a fin. And it kind of ended in like the end of a chapter, not the end of a book.
Right.
So like, the stories really didn't end on 3. There was 2 endings, one non-ending, and one kind of in between the chapter. But, volume 2 picks up in 2 months, right where, issue 7 would have been. So it doesn't matter.
Right.
I've been enjoying this. It's really just European comics with a naked pictorial at the end. Our naked pictorial this month is, who is it? So I think they usually have an interview and a naked pictorial. They're not always the same. Penny Pierce is our Penthouse chick of the month. Then there's an interview with, what's her name? Barbara Dunkelman, who I didn't read the interview. I'm not 100% sure who she is, but they've got her dressed up in cosplay. I don't know if she's a cosplayer or something else, because I didn't read the interview. But
right,
there's some nice pictures at the end. Who did this cover? I don't know who did this cover. It's the A cover, though. Once again, they have multiple covers, of course, as with every comic, just about.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, these particular Poscas have a bullet tip. Let me see if I can get that right on my forehead.
Oh, okay.
So it's a pretty thick tip. I use for a lot of these, I use the brush pens. But sometimes, like I use the bigger ones for kind of filling in or making dots. So I'm not sure how easy this is going to be to use for painting these, but I'll find out.
Okay.
I'll let you know. Because like I said, these are the ones, they make really big ones for like pen painting and stuff like that too. For making murals and tagging up walls. Posca does.
Right.
Is Tit Goblin still here? He was saying something about Poscas to me. I forget what it was. Something about he doesn't find them worth the price or something like that. I can't remember what it is. But like a set of like 8 of these is like $20. So they're not super expensive, but they get more expensive as the sets get bigger. And sometimes I think they also make those ones. Have you ever seen they use them for murals and stuff that have like a big reservoir and are kind of bent over? So it's almost like you've got a handle and then the tip comes out sideways like that.
I have not seen those.
I think, yeah. I've seen a lot of people use those for, I've seen them use them for like fine art painting, or it's like if you want a really smooth line, they make a really smooth paint line. Like I've seen, who's that? I can't remember her name. She was in the comedy duo Garfunkel and Oates. Do you know who they are?
Yes.
10 years ago, they did a lot of social media. Now they've actually done some acting stuff too.
Matucci?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget her first name, but I follow her on TikTok.
The brunette.
She's painting stuff. Yes.
Yes. I think she's using some Posca markers.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what she uses to paint on stuff, like stuff she finds around the neighborhood.
Yeah,
abandoned dishwasher.
Furniture and stuff like that, yes. I've watched a few of her videos where she's like, today I found this, I'm painting it. It's like, all right, it's called graffiti, but okay, I understand.
And she does these Keith Haring type graffiti painting.
Yeah, pretty much pictorials that they look cool.
Yeah, she does a nice job with them. A nice job. What are you working on tonight, Chris? Oh, he's muted. He doesn't have his headphones on. We'll have to talk to him when he gets back to work. He must be doing something very important.
Yes, he's making that face of looking up something.
Looking, huh? What's going on over here? What are you working on tonight, Chris?
Some sketch cards.
Ah, okay.
Kind of finished them up.
Are these sketch cards you're selling yourself, or are you doing them for a company?
These are a couple of recent requests.
Okay. So they're commissions.
Yeah, I guess it is what you would call them.
I want a Chris Caruso AIM agent. That's my commission.
You don't.
I do to go with my Steve Bunch AIM agent. Where's my Fred Hembeck AIM agent?
I remember.
You remember the story? I was just telling it last week too.
I feel like that happened like right when I first started working at Marvel. Like a bunch of you guys had these sketch card things, and
it's for the very first sketch card set in '98. So it probably happened in '97.
I just remember y'all talking about like banging out a whole bunch of AIM agents.
That was
and
Bunch.
like you were getting away with murder.
That was Bunch.
And I was just all I could think
for everyone.
Like all I could think was I was like, what? Why is anyone ever going to hire you? Like, that's your last job with those people for sure.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
I didn't do any of them, but Bunch ruined it for everyone. But you have to understand too. They came down. The story goes, whoever idea these sketch cards originally was, their idea was to have famous Marvel artists draw sketch cards. Their budget was $2 a card.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess, hey, he delivered what they paid for.
As you might imagine, famous Marvel artists were not available
at that rate
at $2 a card.
Yeah.
So the week they were due, they came down to the bullpen and were like, "Any of you guys want to do cards?
Oh,
$2
okay.
a card."
We were all doing cards.
Now the AIM agents feel very appropriate.
Well, what happened was there was a race to the bottom to see who could do the simplest card and make the most money. And I can still remember Dave Sharp thought he was in the lead. He did a few Mysterios. Mysterio's fairly easy to draw, but he put some color in them. And then Bunch came back the next morning with 200 AIM agents. And everybody was just like, oh, that he did the night before. Oh, there it is. Finally found it. And the guy who was running the program went, that's it. It's over. We're done here. But he still put the AIM agents in the...
I would think that Bunch made it harder on himself. Like, after 10, I would think he'd be like, I'm gonna draw Spider-Man.
Or he made it easier on himself.
But I'm saying I wouldn't think that his brain could handle 200 of that in a row.
I imagine he got stoned and drew 200 of them. But since I bought this one way back when off of eBay for $10 or something. Probably bought this in like 2000. And then eventually, when did this one come? 2013, I bought a Fred Hembeck AIM agent.
That looks cool.
Yeah. He's been getting some good money for his. Like, I bought this in 2013. He was probably getting $10-15 a card. I looked a couple of years ago, and he was getting like $40 or $60 a card.
Wow.
For some of the more popular ones. I was like, oh, cool. Good for him.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to commission a Chris Geruso AIM agent to
All
go
right.
with my. Once I have 3, I'll have a collect.
$60.
Well, you don't charge $2 a card?
Now that I know what the going rate. Not to put myself in the same category as Fred Hembeck. Was it Cliff Biggers? Was that the guy's name? Who is that guy at the comic shop news that hated?
Oh yes. Cliff Biggers. He hates who?
He hated me.
Oh yeah.
For the audacity to not be Fred Hembeck.
Okay. My funniest Fred Hembeck story involves our friend Ed, who this is, I don't know, must be the aughts. It's a long time ago now. So it's like 20 years ago. My friend Ed, who is an artist, he's also a teacher, and he does a lot of he does illustration and he does caricature stuff. So he's always sort of out there advertising his stuff. And so this is like, I don't know, 2006. I can't even give you a year. It was so long ago. Chris is talking. We'll wait for him to come back, and I'll finish my story. So, like I said, Ed's out there, and he's on some like illustration message board, some place you're supposed to be able to go and post it. Now, this is before the age of social media. So it's like a specialty illustration board where you go and post your stuff and try to get hired, that sort of thing. And so Ed posts his stuff on here, samples of stuff, tries to get hired. And this is back when Ed was married. So he comes home one day and his wife goes, "Do you see what this guy wrote about you on this?" Because she was checking out his business. And some guy had gone on to the illustration board and flamed Ed. Flamed Ed, flamed all his stuff, and signed it Fred Hembeck. And Ed's telling me this story, and I go, "Ed, that wasn't the real Fred Hembeck." But Ed was not, nobody was particularly internet savvy back then. It was before the age of social media, but Ed wasn't really a computer person anyway at that time. And he goes, I said, "Ed, that really wasn't Fred Hembeck." And he goes, "I know that now." So Ed goes home. Ed goes home. His wife is there because, "Did you see this?" It riles Ed up. And Ed could be really mean when he wants to. He's very creative and imaginative with his meanness. So he gets Fred Hembeck's email. He goes to, looks him up. He knows what Fred Hembeck is. He's a comic guy. Gets Fred Hembeck's email. Writes him this long, horrible, flaming email, just saying the meanest things he can think of to Fred Hembeck, and sends it off to him. Fred Hembeck, of course, has no idea what's going on. I can remember Fred Hembeck had a blog at that point. And he writes on his blog something like, "Well, the dark side of the internet came to my inbox this week." I was just like, oh man. Ed eventually apologized. I think he apologized to him pretty quickly when he figured out it wasn't the real Fred Hembeck who flamed him. Well, that's one of my favorite I'm like, Ed, you know that's not the real Fred Hembeck. I know that now. My favorite line. Well, he became friends with Fred Hembeck after that because, and boy was he mean. He showed me the email. Boy was he mean to him. Insulted him, insulted his work, insulted his career. Wonder if Ed still had. I don't think I had a copy of that email. I wonder if Ed still has a copy. I'll have to ask him. I know that now. Let's see, what else did I get? Oh, here's a first issue. It came out last week, and I gave it a glance and passed it over. But this week, when I had fewer comics, I picked it up. And it's Dust to Dust by J.G. Jones and Phil Bram. And it's got sort of this sepia-toned watercolor artwork. Kind of reminiscent of a God, his name just flew out of my head. Marvels.
Alex Ross.
There we go. Alex. I can't remember his name all of a sudden. Alex Ross kind of looked same sort of similar watercolor technique, except not superheroes. But it really read very well. Like I said, last week I looked at it, glanced at it. The art really didn't grab me. I put it back on the shelf. I had plenty of comics last week. This week, I think I only had 3 or 4 on my pull list. So it caught my. I was like, oh, was this the one I looked at last week? It caught my eye again, and I went, you know what? I'll pick it up. And I have to say, the art reads really well. I think I liked it better reading it than just looking at the pictures. And just looking at the pictures, the guy's real talented. But and to talk about how story who was it? Joe asked the question earlier. Do you think comics are more varied and diversified now? You would have never got this story. I don't even know, 25 years ago, because this is. I don't know what. The only thing I can compare it to is a novel I've never read, which is The Grapes of Wrath, which I know is a famous Dust Bowl story. The Dust Bowl, for those who don't know, is during the Great Depression in the Midwest. There was a huge drought. It turned all the farmland to dust, and a lot of people packed up their stuff and moved to California. That was the big place to move at the time. Really bad time to be in Oklahoma, which is where I think this takes place. So in the story, we've got a little boy and his family who are leaving this farm. They're like sharecroppers on this farm. And they're just leaving. They've been renting the farm for 6 months. They're like, tell the landlord we're out of here. New Hope is. And then the other character riding this horse is the sheriff. Even though it's the 1930s, he doesn't like a car. He rides the horse. And another character in here who shows up is this woman who's a photographer who's working for the WPA, which is the Works Project Administration. Once again, during the Great Depression, part of the getting people back to work thing was this program called the WPA. And they had an arts portion of it where they just paid artists to make art. And part of that is they're paying her to take photographs. And she's got I think some magazine published the photographs too. So she's another one of the characters. So it's almost like a slice of life of the Dust Bowl. And this is just something, and read really well. I enjoyed it. It engrossed me. I liked the character. We got a storm coming. There was huge dust storms at this time, and I think this is Oklahoma. I can't remember. But we, like no other, like no other comic I've read, there's no Dust Bowl dramas in comics. Now there is. So I got to say, I really enjoyed this one. I'm going to put it on my pull list. Giant Generator. So that's Rick Remender. And he writes in the back, J.G. Jones is the author. He's like, oh, do you have some project you've always wanted to work on? He's like, yeah. Guess he always wanted to do a Dust Bowl story. Dust to Dust. So enjoyed that one. Very, unlike any other comic I've read. You read any comics lately, Chris?
I've been reading the absolute DC stuff. Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman.
All three?
Yeah.
You got a favorite among the three?
I haven't read this issue yet. This stuff just doesn't stay in my head. Like, this is issue 3 of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember what happened in the first 2 issues.
They're just comics you enjoy while you read them, and then they leave your head. That happens to some people.
I think it's just because I'm old now.
There is that, too.
When I was a kid, I remembered everything. Like Savage Dragon's a good example, because I've been reading Savage Dragon since I was a kid. And I remember all that early stuff with a lot of clarity, and I probably don't remember anything from the last 5 years. Like, if I had to recall like what happened in the last 5 years, I'd be like, well, a couple of things, but
here's what it is. This is what changed my habits. About 20 years ago, that same thing, I would say the same thing. I mean, it still happens to some comics, but those are usually the dull ones. What it was I thought about it, and I was like, well, when I was a kid, I'd get the latest issue of X-Men. I'd read it through. I'd put it down. Sometime a couple days later, I might pick it up again. I might just flip through it. Might read a couple pages. I'll put it down. I'll read it again before the next issue comes out. I'll put it, but like the comics were out, which meant I could pick them up and look at them. Now, at that point, like let's say 20 years ago, what would happen was, same thing as I do now, right back there, I got a spot for my to-be-read comics. I'd put them in my to-be-read comics. I'd read them, and I'd shelve them away. And the same thing. I couldn't remember anything. That's when I started, what I would do at this point, I had a different habit at that point. I would read, they'd be in my to-be-read pile, and then I'd move them over to the top of my printer. And anytime I went by, I'd kind of just pick one up and look at it. And now what I do, they're in my to-be-read pile. I read them, and I put them back in my to-be-read pile. And then I'll read them a second time over the next week. Like I may get to, I'm only reading 6 comics a week, so it's not a huge amount of time. But I'll read all those 6 comics, usually before the Friday show. And then I'll let them sit there, and I'll probably read them a second time before I pick up my new comics on Wednesday. Or if I don't, I'll just leave them there and read them the following week. But just reading them that second time before I put them away, I see new things in the because also the first time through I'm reading them, I'm very involved with the plot. You want to know what's going to happen next. The second time reading through, I'm involved with more of the subtlety of them because I already know what's happened. So I think it's not just your memory. It's that at some point you stopped ever looking at a comic twice. So of course you're never going to remember it like you did when you read it 3 or 4 times.
That is the most long-winded way of saying read them more than once.
That's because you got to go there. Just saying read them more than once, you'd go, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, you have to realize what your habits were. When I was getting my comics, when I got them from the comic book shop when I went to college, I would pick up the books, read them on the bus on the way home. then get home and then go through them again, and then like figure, well, I looked through them on the bus. I don't think I really read them.
Right.
So I get home.
Want to give them a good sit down read. Good sit down read. Have them out. Not even bag and board them yet. Right.
Go through the books that I got the week before to make sure I'm not missing anything. Then maybe read those to make sure. What did I read? You know, how did that end? What cliffhanger was that one? And then read it. And then I learned when I got to Marvel, I didn't realize I was doing it. I would get my comps and I would go through them, read them. Then when I got the art returns, I kind of looked through them again because I'm looking at the artwork.
Right.
I was also the one sending the books to the Comics Code. So I pre-read the books in black and white to see if I could catch anything before it went out. So I would
That's not really reading, too.
Right. So I'm looking them over. So it's like I look at that certain books. I've looked at the black and white artwork from the Comics Code issue. Then the original art would come in. Then the color guides would come in, and I would kind of glance at them. So by the time I got the comic book, I may have read that comic book 4 or 5 times without realizing, and then I would sit down and then read the book.
Yeah, and without ever really, because when I do production on a comic, I don't actually read it.
Right.
I would be doing the production on some bad idea comics. Then when I got the final issue of my comic shop, I'd be like, the parts that were familiar, but I'd go, oh, that's what that meant. Because I'd be used to the images and stuff, but I never really read it.
Mm-hmm. So
that's another long-winded way of saying, Chris, read your comics more than once. And you will remember them better.
Yeah. Well, because of that, I can't remember what the first 2 issues of Absolute Superman were like.
Go back and read them before you read issue 3, or at least look through them.
Well, they're Jody's. So they're in a pile in Jody's room, and I don't feel comfortable rummaging through Jody's things.
Oh, come on. Use that charm.
Well,
did I do that?
I do that.
Okay,
I feel like I do. I could tell you what happened in the Batman and the Wonder Woman books, though. Like that.
So, now, are those from what I understand? They're completely divorced from the real heroes. They're like new imaginings of. They're just keeping the costumes.
You might as well just call them Elseworlds.
Right. Well, not even, because in Elseworlds, you get the same characters over and over with the same. My one criticism of the Elseworlds is like they're the same characters with different clothing. These ones, the characters aren't the same. Like it's not Bruce Wayne in the Batman costume and his parents didn't die.
It is Bruce Wayne in the Batman costume.
Oh, it is Bruce Wayne in the Batman costume?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Batman.
I'd heard that
Batman is still Batman. Wonder Woman is still Wonder Woman, and Superman is still Superman. They're just changing stuff. It's
all right.
I say, you know what? I think you could say they're like an Elseworlds.
Okay, then you're right. They are like an Elseworlds. I thought that they had changed more than that.
I mean, they change everything. Like the Elseworld stuff was all over the map back in the 90s.
They're all over the map, but Batman's always there. The Joker's always there. Commissioner Gordon's always there.
Yeah, we got Gordon.
Robin's always there.
We haven't seen Robin yet.
Yeah, I'm okay.
And Batman's mom is still alive. His dad is dead. We got Gordon. We got Alfred. But Alfred, it's kind of the story of Alfred and Bruce like meeting for the first time, and Alfred is some basically like a James Bond type of guy,
right?
And he's kind of at odds with Batman.
Okay. And
so
the Wonder Woman one,
it's way different.
And the Wonder Woman one,
you're getting a story of like she's showing up in our world to battle like these giant monsters that appeared in the ocean. Everybody's freaking out because they don't know anything. she just shows up out of nowhere. And you're also getting like at the same time you're getting flashback of her childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And she's basically, I forget who's raising her. Is one of the other gods, but she's like basically being raised in hell, and it's just like her and her mother figure. I don't think it's her real mother. And it's just like monsters, and they're basically in this demon realm or whatever. But somehow Steve Trevor shows up there at some point. But and it's like, all right, this is she's growing up in very harsh conditions and magic and whatever. But the thing that stood out to me is that like at some point, she's reading The Giving Tree, like Shel Silverstein's Giving Tree. I'm like, how did they get this book there?
Is there a bookstore in hell? Does she have to special order it?
Maybe.
Is G-Man there too? Can she get that one?
Oh yeah. Huh. Hey, did you guys already talk about Superman and the trailer and James Gunn and all that?
No, we usually don't talk movies at all.
We never stay on current events.
Yeah.
All right, I'm only asking just because I see that Crypto's on the cover here.
I just really have not much to say about the movies. That's all that is.
All right, well then I don't want to steer us into that then. Let's move along.
Let me show you a comic that speaking of creepy comics, The Sickness, the second story arc, number 6 came out by Jenny Cha. Jenny Cha is our artist, and script and story by Jenny Cha and Lonnie Nadler. And this is the one, I mean, it's just creepy. I don't even know how to describe this. The Sickness there's 2 stories taking place at the same time. One in the late 40s and one in the mid 60s. And it's about people succumbing to this weird illness where they see monsters and demons torturing them. And it's kind of everything that's going on in the life. And there's one doctor in the 60s trying to figure it all out. And it's hard to describe. The plot is these people are just kind of getting sicker and their lives are going on. And it's really hard. But this is the one that...
Let me guess. They're on Earth the whole time.
They're on Earth the whole time. Here, we'll read you the back. If you're feeling sick, the man may be following you. 1945. Daniel broods after a failed confrontation with the man. The only impact of his friend's plan was to exacerbate his symptoms to the point that the hallucinations feel more alive than ever. Whatever this illness is, it wants something from David. And the man is... When you start getting, you're starting to get sick when you see this phantom man in black following you. 1955 is the other one. Oh, this is the George performs an autopsy on the housewife who murdered her family, resulting in disturbing revelation. The wife who murdered her family had the sickness, resulting in disturbing revelations. However, he comes to a standstill in his attempt to trace patients with similar symptoms. Little does he know, the sickness is closer to him than he could ever imagine. I think someone he knows has it. But really creepy. And this was the one, if you remember, I think it was in 2023, I actually got a subscription to this. Uncivilized Books in their email offered a subscription to the first 5 issues for $30, which is, I think the cover price is $6. So that was cover price. And they're like, if you're among the first 200 people, we'll send you all 5 covers to issue number 1. So I said, I'll try that out for $30. And then I got all 5 issues to cover number 1, showed them off here and went, now what do I do with 5 5 copies of the same comic? So I just put it on my poll. I didn't, and I was like, they cannot be making any money on that subscription.
They probably wanted you to share those with your friends. Here's an extra copy. Read it.
And they offered a subscription to this volume 2, you know, the next 5 issues.
The book spreads like a sickness.
Ah, I see. But it's good, creepy story. But it's hard to talk about the plot because it's kind of slow moving and creepy. And of course, I got the latest issue of Saga. Don't have a lot to say about Saga. This is issue 71. I mean, if you're not on board with Saga, I don't know why you'd start with issue 71, but it's good stuff. Start anywhere you want. It's all in collected and trade paperback. The saga continues about people living in space, caught in between wars. Have either of you ever tried out Saga?
I've read the whole series so far.
Yeah?
I'm up to date other than the one you just bought, I guess.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I think I may have picked up the first issue and I never went back.
Do you have any thoughts on Saga, Chris?
That's one that I read once, and then I don't have trouble following every consecutive issue, even though I've only read the previous issues once.
Right.
I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember, and I can.
Okay. Yeah, I've read them all twice, being that I read them twice, but I've never gone back and reread it.
Yeah.
Like
I don't feel lost. Like I know I don't have a super sharp memory of it, but I don't feel lost reading each new issue.
Okay.
And they took big breaks.
Yeah, it did. Took a break for like 3 years. Something like that. Something that sometimes something like Saga, I have a hard time having something new to say about it because I've been reading it for 71 issues. I obviously like it. I describe it as space opera, I guess. Like the Fiona Staples art. Let's see here's a surprising one. Nexus Scourge. When I say surprising, I saw it on my LCS, and I think I passed it over pre-ordering. I'm a Nexus fan. I've bought just about everything Nexus, but this is Nexus without Steve Rude. It's Mike Barron and Kelsey Shannon, because I think that Steve Rude can put out Nexus and Stoke and Mike Barron. They co-created it. They did it for years. But I think at this point, either one, they have some agreement, can put. I think Mike Barron did some Nexus Pros stuff too. But I saw it on the shelf, picked it up, and the art was really nice and very Mike Barron and very Steve Rude-ish. So I was like, you know what? I'll give it a read. And sure enough, I liked it. So I think it's just a mini. Let's see if it says. It does not say. Copyright Mike Barron and Steve Rude. So I guess Kelsey Shannon's just a hired hand. Letters by Warren Montgomery. Covers by Kelsey Shannon, Cannon White, and Peter Orchard. I don't know who did this one. So, cover by Kelsey Shannon. Look at that. They tell you up there. That's nice.
That is cool.
The corner box. But I got to say, I was really impressed by this version of Nexus. I think it's as close to Steve Rude as we're going to get. But the guy did his own thing, but really looked nice. So, I think I'm going to buy the rest of this series. That's something I really want to go back and reread. The original Nexus stuff. I don't think I've read it since the 80s. You guys ever read any Nexus?
I picked up a few because of a Madman crossover.
Okay.
And so once I picked up that, I think I picked up God Convention.
Okay, yeah, I remember that one.
So I was reading those books. I don't think I ever picked up like any of them in trade. So I think I was getting them loose for a while they were publishing.
Right. Dark Horse even put out some archive editions of them. Mm-hmm. Library editions, I think. Yeah. I think they published all of the Rude stuff in hardcover, but I'm not sure how much. But there were a lot of volumes of it way back when in hardcover, I think. let's see, what else did I get? The latest issue of Rogue Sun. Once again, not something I have a ton to say about. Superhero story about the teenager who inherited his father's superhero suit. And now the ghost of his father is helping him learn his powers. So he gets into fights and there's superhero stuff. But it's pretty well done. Writers are Nick Cotton and Ryan Parrott. One named artist, Abel, on this arc. Natalia Marquez, colorist, Becca Carey, letterer, and it's a good, solid story. But it's Rogue Sun is a solid B. Let's see. The other one I got here is Uncanny Valley, issue number 7. This is the one where the kid finds out his grandfather was a cartoon, a Yosemite Sam type cartoon. And these other cartoons, he's somehow special, and these other cartoons are trying to kidnap him for some reason. He went into cartoon land himself and became a cartoon this issue. So, as a really, really nicely told story here. Issue 7. Let's see. Anything else did I get this week? Oh, the final thing I got this week was the latest issue of Spawn. And Todd McFarlane is back writing it. I've enjoyed Rory McConville writing it. And Brett Booth is penciling it with Delso Corona inking, Robert Nugent colors, Tom Warzakowski letters. And I gotta say, I was a little Todd McFarlane may have gotten to be a better writer I was just saying, I'm surprised he never got to be a better writer. And I think it was Sleepy Reader who was picking up the Sam and Twitch miniseries. And he was like, hey, McFarlane's writing isn't so bad on this. He's doing a pretty good, maybe he's good at noir stuff. And I have to say, in reading this one issue, because McFarlane was writing it a little bit before, and I wasn't thrilled with his writing. It wasn't terrible, though. But sometimes I'd be like, but this, I have to say, was a pretty well-written issue. So I have to say, maybe Todd McFarlane has learned some stuff in the last few years, as opposed to the last few decades, about writing. So I was happy with Todd McFarlane's writing in this. Mm-hmm. So now we got a little bit of time to talk about the Superman trailer. What were your thoughts on it, Chris? You can derail us now. I got those.
Well, I mean, it's not really what we talk about here, is it? We should.
It doesn't matter. We can go. This is a Cavern of Chaos. We can go in any direction we want.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
I am a fan of trailers in general. I watch the trailers and not the movies. I watched that trailer 2 or 3 times. Thought they did a nice job with it. I'll probably watch it again and never see the movie.
Okay. Well, then what did you like about that trailer that keeps you coming back for more trailer?
I thought it told a good story. Thought it told us a story about a vulnerable Superman. A human Superman. Also showed us some superhuman stuff. Gave us a little look into the everyday life of Superman, and of course gave us Crypto, the super dog rescue. Little dog love there too. That was good. There was nothing specific about I'm not one of those trailer analysis people, though sometimes I watch the trailer analyses, but it's like I don't really dissect it. I think the trailer people really know their job in a lot of cases. And in this case, I think they did. Like, what was that? The Suicide Squad trailer that used Bohemian Rhapsody. Excellent trailer. Watched that one quite a few times.
Was that for the first?
I think
movie,
so.
Or for the James Gunn movie?
I think that was for the first Suicide Squad movie. I don't know if I ever actually watched the movie, but I watched the trailer plenty of times. And That's how you can. That's how I can describe most of the superhero movies. Is I like the trailers.
Mhm.
What did you like about the trailer? Did the trailer make you want to watch the movie?
Well, I already wanted to watch the movie.
Okay.
Because James Gunn, I feel like, has a pretty solid track record for me.
Right.
The stuff that he does is
I liked his Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. I watched that.
Yeah, everything he does has been to my taste.
Okay.
So he did the Guardians movies, that second Suicide Squad movie.
Peacemaker. I wasn't fond of that one.
I thought it was great.
It was okay, but I wasn't. That was the one with Peacemaker.
Yeah, and then he did the Peacemaker miniseries.
And Starro.
Yeah.
See, that was a little too camp. He was getting a little too camp for me in that one. But I understand everybody else loved it. I mean,
I think he was the right level. He's not afraid to do look, this is a superhero world, and there's it's just a silly looking monster, but
I just think he went to the side. He went to. It's a fine line, It didn't bother you. It bothered me. There's nothing right or wrong about it.
Well, in this case, I am right, and you are wrong.
In this case.
And he did. Have you ever seen? He did a movie called The Specials, an indie movie, maybe late '90s, early 2000s.
Specialist.
No, The Specials.
The Specials.
They're like the 7th or 8th best superhero team.
No, I've never seen that one.
And it's basically them on like a day when there's no major, fights or world disasters and stuff. But it's got Rob Lowe is in it, Thomas Hayden Church, not Pam Grier. Who's the Grier? The girl, the comedic actress Grier. I forget her name.
Eric P agrees with you. The Specials is pretty great.
It's fantastic. And it's shows how good he is, and you start to see okay, there's a commonality in all the stuff that he does. He's great at introducing you to
says Eric P.
Judy Greer. That's it. But it's a lot of ragtag group of people, and he makes you love them. There's usually some sort of a dance number, and music is very integral to all the stuff that he does.
I think I need to clean my camera. I'm getting a lot of weird glare.
There is, we have quite a bit of glare.
I just figured you had put Vaseline on it to make yourself look youthful.
No, I think probably fingerprints. Here, while you guys talk.
Because you do look lovely. It's working. Whatever it is you're doing, it's working. You're dressed in your Green Goblin colors.
Let's see. Look at that.
Yeah.
See if the glare from the top of my glasses went away too. I get a little bit, but not like it was. There we go. I should have cleaned my camera before I came on.
I'll clean your clock.
I'm one of those people who liked Guardians of the Galaxy 2 better than Guardians of the Galaxy 1.
You're one of those, huh?
Yeah, to tell you where my taste is.
I didn't know that there was
number one better.
I didn't know there were camps.
Yes. There are.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Everybody's very. You got to get their category down and let everyone know. I don't know. I just like them all. It's one giant story, same director, same cast. It's
Google
great.
Dance scene from The Specials. It's on YouTube. Okay.
Yeah, Guardians 1, it hinged on a dance scene.
Yeah.
Specials had a dance scene. Peacemaker, the intro is just the goofy dance routine.
See, that's where it got too much into camp for me with Peacemaker. I mean, that seems to be the direction superhero movies.
Did you watch Peacemaker?
No, I couldn't. It was too camp for me. Just watching the trailers made me go, not for me.
You're one of these guys that judges without having actually consumed the content.
I judged the trailer. The advertisement they gave me for the show made me think the show wasn't for me. So yeah, that was my judgment. I watched the trailer and went, this one's not for me. That's why they have those advertisements out there, to convince me. But they did not convince me to spend my time watching their show.
You know what you remind me of?
What do I remind you of?
You remind me of a guy telling me that my favorite comic was Everything Wrong with Comic Books.
Oh, I reserve the right to be wrong. There are plenty of times where what it is sometimes my perception of something stops me from watching it. But if I can overcome that perception and watch it, I might like it. Like Peacemaker, it is my idea that it is too camp that keeps me from watching it. It might not be too camp. And that has happened where there's been something where I've been like, that looks too this for me. And then when I finally see it, it's not too that this.
If I had to tell you, if I had to like rank like which one you should see, like if I'd said, okay, just if you can only watch one of these, I think you'll like the specials.
Okay. I'll have to check out the special.
And Wilson, this goes for you too if you have never seen it.
Right.
I have not, so I'm going to write it down to take a look at it. I do enjoy Gunn as a director. I've enjoyed the stuff I've been watching with him. I have one small problem with his storytelling, and it comes from watching Creature Commandos. And it's just me being an old fuddy-duddy. Is I don't like the killing of characters in the sense the way he kills them are great and stuff like that, but storytelling wise it's like, oh, if I was a Batman writer, I no longer have access to that character anymore. And as you're watching it, and I have mentioned it to my brother, and it was like the latest one he's watching, he realized, oh, I see what you mean. And again, it's just nitpicking on my part. Everything else I've been enjoying. It's just that superhero movies have always done that. To me, I think it's a problem. That is right. Like, Spider-Man, he kills the Green Goblin. You don't use Green Goblin anymore. Batman, he killed the first Joker. You can't use Joker anymore. Now, of course, these characters come back. It's the way comic books are. But they don't come back in those movies. They come back in other reboots for them to kill them again. So to me, that just seems a little too repetitive. And that
I wanted to see a Shatterstar movie. And they just killed them off. Didn't he get killed in some movie?
Is Creature? I keep hearing. I haven't watched Creature Commandos yet.
Oh, you're a huge James Gunn fan, but you haven't watched Creature Commandos. Big fan. Love his stuff. Won't watch Creature Commandos though.
I flatly refuse.
I enjoy it. It's up there with the.
I like my creatures to be regular and not commandos.
And I like the concept that he has is that whatever you see on the screen is canon to this new DCU.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. What I wanted to ask, because like I it's not clear to me like what the deal. Like I didn't know anything. All of a sudden, everyone's talking about this is launching the Gunn universe.
I don't know anything about that either.
So with the newer DCU, what's canon so far are the Suicide Squad movies. He say are loosely canon. So if it happened in Suicide Squad, yeah, it happened. The this new Creature Commandos, everything that's happening in there is canon. So the previous movie, and so is Peacemaker, except for those 3 minutes of Justice League footage. So he's basically keeping what happened in Peacemaker. So all these things are kind of like mentioned and referenced. And there's a few things that are shown, like there's not spoiling anything, somebody sees what they think is the future. And so they show some superheroes that gotten killed in this apocalyptic future. And there are people who just like paused on that image and they're trying to figure things out. And it's like, all right, okay, so Robin must exist in this universe and this character must exist. And you see a Superman character, a Batman character. So these characters exist. Things like that. So people go crazy for that. Me, I'm just enjoying it as I'm watching it. And then the Creature Commandos, again, Gunn is really good at making you care about these characters. Creature Commandos, like Suicide Squad, you're following
Where
villains.
where can I watch this? Is it on HBO Max or is it on Max? Is that where it is?
I believe it's on HBO Max.
Okay.
You should be able to see it there. And I'm enjoying it. I'm liking it. He does a really good job at humanizing these characters for you. You know, he made my brother almost cry over a raccoon. So he gets you.
What do you mean almost?
He won't admit he cried. He won't admit he cried. So he'll say almost, which means he cried over Rocket Raccoon, the origin. And Gunn is good at that, making you care about characters you normally don't care. The fun thing I'm having with Creature Commandos is I don't know a lot of these characters. I am aware of them, but I don't know their origins and stuff like that. So
Creature Commandos is a series?
Huh?
Is it Creature Commando a TV series?
It's a TV series on Max.
Okay.
So it's a cartoon series, but he has the actors that he has voicing the characters are the actors who will be those characters.
Ah.
So the actress that plays Amanda Waller was the same actress who played her in live action. So he also makes it a point that the people he's hiring are voicing the people who are going to continue those characters in the upcoming TV shows and movies. So he's good at keeping it all together and keeping this continuity going on. So far, I'm enjoying it. And again, the only thing of me being a fuddy-duddy and nitpicking is that, oh, you killed this particular gang lord member mafia guy.
Now we don't have them.
So we don't have them if they ever do something with Batman. Right. So, and again, that's the only thing. I understand what they're doing. They're trying to get the people who watch, you know, all the other superhero stuff where they're not afraid to kill off characters and stuff like that. So I see it. But at the same time, old mindset of, oh, okay, but now you can't use that character unless you have a good way to resurrect them. And I don't know if they do. So it's so I find it interesting how they're doing that.
Well, on that note, we should sign off for the evening with some confetti and some balloons and some lasers.
Lasers!
Where are you? I don't know, my lasers? Oh well, no lasers.
You gotta fix your lasers.
I gotta fix my
find
lasers.
out where your lasers are. Update that subscription to the lasers.
Well, everyone have a good night out there.
Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend.
We'll catch you next time.